I made a difficult decision and announced, "Once I leave, there's no coming back." Clutching my belongings, tears welled up, blending with a sense of frustration and the physical ache in my neck. This marked the end of my stay at my in-laws' home. My name is Jessica, and I'm 37 years old. I had been married for 4 years. Before my marriage, I worked from home as a writer. This career turn became a necessity after my father's accident, prompting me to return to my parents' home to lend my support. Over time, I found significant success as a freelancer, surpassing the earnings from my previous traditional job. During a college reunion, I reconnected with Larry, who would later become my husband. Despite our contrasting personalities, there was an undeniable attraction, and soon we were married. Tragically, shortly after our wedding, Larry's father passed away. To support his grieving mother, we moved in with her, a decision that set the stage for a challenging cohabitation. From the beginning, life with my mother-in-law was fraught with difficulties. Despite my efforts to be supportive and integrate into the family, she never fully accepted me as Larry's wife. Her constant criticisms and sarcastic remarks began to wear on me. Yet I stayed determined and resilient, making a firm decision to leave and seek a better life for myself when it became unbearable. One evening, as I prepared dinner, Helen, my mother-in-law, questioned the quality of the ingredients. "Did you buy these from that store? How can you prepare a proper meal with such ingredients?" she scoffed. "These were actually from the nearby luxury supermarket. I'm sorry if it's not to your taste, Helen. It's just a simple salad. Larry likes it, and I often make it." "Yes, it's a bit pricey," I replied, trying to keep the peace. "My goodness, act in a way that doesn't bring shame to our family. You never know who's watching," she sighed, clearly disappointed. Her words stung, but they also ignited a resolve within me to gain her recognition through improving my grooming and cooking skills. Despite my daily efforts, her cold gaze never softened. Initially, I brushed off her sarcasm and harsh words, but over time, they weighed heavily on me, making me feel invalidated and powerless. I yearned to confide in Larry, but our relationship had shifted. We hardly spent quality time together anymore. "I've been busy with work lately," Larry would say, looking exhausted. Feeling increasingly isolated, I finally gathered the courage to share my concerns with him. "Hey, I have something to discuss," I started one day. "Oh, I actually have something to tell you too. I quit my job 4 months ago," Larry interjected. "What? Quit? What do you mean?" I gasped in surprise. "Don't worry, I've already started another job. Remember the select shop I always wanted to open? I finally launched it. I'm co-managing it with Senior Samuel," he revealed, referring to a respected figure from our university known for his leadership and charisma. In college, he developed and successfully sold a game app, later starting a startup with his friends to showcase his skills. In his usual gentle way, but with a hint of guilt in his eyes, he said, "I didn't want to worry you or Mom. I'll work harder from now on. Will you support me?" His words moved me, yet I hesitated slightly before responding. "I'll support you, but about the rent for this house, can you cover all of it?" I asked. He looked at me earnestly and pleaded, "Please, Jessica. This has always been my dream. It's taking longer than expected to turn a profit. That's why I want to invest more in advertising. I'll definitely get this business on track before we leave here. I need your help to do that." Moved by his passion and sincerity, I couldn't refuse. I could afford the rent with my income, and fortunately we had some savings. More importantly, I have never forgotten the day I chose to marry him, sharing and empathizing with his dreams and passion. "If you say so, I understand, but only until the lease on this rental ends. Also, I want to know more about the store you're running," I agreed. "Of course, thank you," Larry said, showing me the website of his select shop. I was impressed by its charm and asked if there was anything I could help with. "I want you to focus on your work and please don't tell my mother about this. I don't want to worry her," he requested. With this new development, thoughts of my mother-in-law completely left my mind. I was eager to support Larry's business, but the monthly expenses I had to cover kept increasing. Gradually managing the entire household budget, financially aiding my husband, and even providing an allowance to my mother-in-law became solely my responsibility. My only hope was for the rental contract to end quickly. Jessica, could you put off your computer work for a bit and do some cleaning? Since you're staying here, you should be more proactive with the household chores, my mother-in-law instructed one day. Oh, I'm sorry, Mother. I'll start as soon as I finish this job, I replied hurriedly. This is your job. Enough excuses. Get it done quickly. We have guests coming this afternoon. After you're done cleaning, please leave the house, she insisted. My relationship with my unaware mother-in-law remained unchanged over time. On days when she had guests, I always had to vacate the house after finishing the cleaning, seeming to bother her. Fortunately, I could work anywhere with my laptop, which was a small consolation. However, one day held a different outcome. When I returned home in the evening, my mother-in-law, looking satisfied, greeted me with, "Welcome back. I tidied up your room." Confused, I rushed to my office. The room was indeed tidied. In the middle of the room, neatly organized, were a large suitcase and 2 duffel bags. Puzzled, I asked my mother-in-law, "What does this mean, Mother?" This room was originally prepared for guests. I can't tolerate someone with your disregard for housekeeping using it. If you wish to stay here, you'll need to pay a fee. If that doesn't suit you, you may leave immediately. Don't expect to live here luxuriously without contributing, she stated firmly. I bit back my words, feeling a mix of hurt and indignation. As I lowered my head, trying to hide my upset, she added with a tone of finality, "I must say, I don't see you as Larry's rightful wife." With that, she turned and left for the living room. Tears of frustration welled up as I felt isolated and wronged. I tried calling Larry, but he didn't answer. After sending him a message about the situation, his reply came, "Please bear with it a little longer." When Larry came home late that night, I couldn't hold back any longer. "I'm already covering the full rent, and now she expects me to pay extra just to use a room? Her demands are unreasonable," I vented. Larry looked troubled and immediately tried to soothe the situation. "I'm sorry, I'll talk to her. Once we leave this place, you won't have to deal with her again. Just hold on a bit longer," he pleaded. His words calmed me slightly, offering a glimmer of hope. The next morning, it seemed Larry had spoken to his mother. We had breakfast together in an unusually quiet atmosphere, without her typical sarcastic remarks. Since my room had been cleared, I decided to work from the dining table. Mid-morning, my mother-in-law approached unexpectedly. "Are you leaving today?" she inquired. Before I could respond, I felt a sudden sharp pain in my neck. "Ouch, that's hot!" I exclaimed, turning to see her smirking with a hair iron in hand. "Why would you do this?" I managed to ask, clutching my neck, bewildered and in pain. "It's time you felt some heat, too," she sneered. "I wanted to test how thick-skinned you are. You live such a luxurious life, yet you contribute nothing." "I work hard, too," I protested, my voice filled with disbelief and anger. "Why would you do something so cruel?" She scoffed. "You call your at-home job work? You're just using it as an excuse to laze around. Nothing more." Her words stung as I hurried to the kitchen for a cooling pack, the pain in my neck a harsh reminder of the growing rift between us. Overwhelmed by the unfairness of it all, I couldn't help but glare at my mother-in-law. "What's with that look? The look of a pitiful person," she scoffed. "I've reached my limit. Leave this house immediately or I can't be responsible for what happens next." "Am I free to leave?" I questioned, my voice shaky with the weight of the decision. "I won't come back, you know." "Yes, that's fine. I'm fed up with supporting someone like you," she retorted, her words dripping with disdain and disappointment. Overcome with a whirlwind of emotions, I began to cry as I packed my things. Fortunately, since my mother-in-law had already organized my belongings the day before, the process was quick. I left my in-laws' home without a backward glance, and after a brief visit to the hospital, I found solace at my favorite cafe. The spacious tables and tranquil atmosphere provided the perfect setting to focus and gather my thoughts. As I debated whether to contact Larry, I was unexpectedly greeted. "Jessica, is that you?" To my surprise, it was Senior Samuel. "It's been a while. How's Larry doing?" "I heard you were the co-owner of his shop," he remarked. Caught off guard, I apologized for not greeting him earlier. "I only helped with the website design at Larry's request," I explained. Senior Samuel looked puzzled. "Co-owner? What do you mean? I just heard you were the main sponsor." I was taken aback by his words. Larry had lied? This revelation hit me hard. It turned out that Larry had rented a different apartment and had been making an effort during the initial months, a detail he hadn't shared with me. Despite Larry's involvement in the online shop, others were handling the inventory, shipping, and promotion from the outset. Against the advice of Senior Samuel, who suggested he take a more hands-on approach, Larry maintained that such tasks weren't suitable for a businessman. Consequently, there was no growth in foot traffic or sales, just a continual rise in expenses. According to Senior Samuel, Larry was now deeply engrossed in the internet business, spending lavishly on consultants and portraying himself as a successful business owner while sometimes treating his employees poorly. I was stunned by these revelations. The added strain of covering my mother-in-law's expenses stemmed from the depletion of my father-in-law's inheritance, a fact unknown to me until now. Larry's recent pleas for financial help were likely a result of dwindling funds, something he had concealed from me. Connecting the dots with Senior Samuel's insights, the picture became painfully clear. After thanking Senior Samuel, I left the cafe and found myself at my parents' doorstep, luggage in tow. My father greeted me with a surprised look. Overwhelmed, tears streamed down my face as I faced my parents, who had been unaware of my struggles. "Tell us what happened." "Your mom and I are always here for you," my father assured me. Encouraged by their support, I broke down and shared everything. The harsh treatment from my mother-in-law, the financial burdens I carried for the in-laws' household, and the revelations about Larry. Both of my parents were deeply moved and shared in my tears. "There's no need to return to your in-laws. Live for yourself from now on," my father declared, his words echoing with sincerity. That conversation lifted a tremendous weight off my shoulders. What had I been enduring all these months? The only word from Larry was a brief message asking, "Where are you now?" After ignoring several similar inquiries, his attempts to reach out ceased. It seemed my presence in his life was inconsequential. But in that moment of realization, more than sadness, I felt a decisive clarity. Enjoying a simple meal with my parents, I experienced the genuine warmth of family, a stark contrast to what I'd endured. While staying at my parents' house, I began to rediscover myself. About 3 weeks later, Larry called, likely because the rent was due. "Jessica, where are you? Have things calmed down with Mom? She feels bad about it. Aren't you coming back soon?" he asked. "I'm at my parents' house now and I plan to stay here. Your mother said she's tired of taking care of someone like me," I replied calmly, determined to forge a new path for myself free from the burdens of my previous life. Firm in my decision, I told Larry, "I think we should get a divorce." His response was immediate. "Wait, why divorce? If living with Mom is the problem, we can sort it out. I'm coming to pick you up so we can discuss this in person." "Why should we talk now when you were unreachable before? How's your business going?" I asked. There was a pause before he replied, "Actually, I'm consulting with a business expert. There might be a big breakthrough next month." "That's beside the point," I countered. "You haven't shared anything substantial with me, and that's why I don't want to talk anymore. I'll draft the divorce papers and send them to you." I ended the call and hung up. However, that night, Larry unexpectedly showed up at my parents' house. I spoke to him through a small gap in the door, kept secure by the chain. "Jessica, please don't be upset. Let's return home. Mom regrets what happened," he pleaded. "I was forced out by your mother," I reminded him sternly. "You expect me not to take that seriously? She burned me with a hot hair iron. I don't know what she might do next. There's no way I can go back." I showed him the burn mark on my neck. "Did Mom do that?" "I'm so sorry, I didn't know. She told me it was just a minor argument," Larry apologized. "A minor argument?" His trivializing of the incident fueled my anger further. I had intended to discuss divorce calmly, but his dismissiveness made it clear that a calm discussion might not be possible. "I'm not coming back. You should go home too. I'll contact you again tomorrow." "Really? Will you call? I can't accept a divorce without a proper discussion. If you don't call, I'll be back tomorrow," Larry said before leaving. Determined to address the situation formally, I arranged a meeting with Larry and my mother-in-law 5 days later at a chic restaurant located on the 25th floor of a luxury hotel. On the day, I chose to wear a high-end brand dress, styling my hair up to expose the burn on my neck visibly. My mother-in-law seemed displeased by my appearance. "Thank you for gathering today," I began, managing a polite smile as I addressed them. "I've reserved afternoon tea, so please enjoy it." Larry appeared somewhat relieved by my composed demeanor. As tea and small appetizers were served, my mother-in-law broke the silence. "Jessica, I'm truly sorry about last time. I was wrong," she admitted, her tone contrite. Larry had reprimanded her severely. "You'll forgive me, won't you?" she pleaded. I didn't respond immediately, choosing instead to quietly continue enjoying my appetizer, pondering the sincerity of her apology and the next steps in our complicated relationship. I slowly turned my neck to display the burn scar. I can forgive, but not until this scar fades. Also, are you aware that Larry quit his job? The revelation made Larry visibly tense, and my mother-in-law looked at him in shock. "What do you mean he quit? He's been claiming he's busy every day," she stammered, her voice a mix of confusion and alarm. "Yes, he's busy pretending to be a successful businessman," I added, trying to keep my tone even. "Larry, what's going on? Explain yourself," my mother-in-law demanded, her earlier panic turning to urgency. As she pressed him for answers, I watched the scene unfold with a bittersweet sense of vindication. Meanwhile, the server brought over a tea stand laden with enticing sweets, which I sampled as I enjoyed the view from the 25th floor cafe, a view that seemed to mirror the high drama unfolding at our table. "By the way, Larry, what have you been doing recently? I heard from Senior Samuel that you quit the select shop. Is that true?" I asked, watching as he paled, his expression flipping between surprise and fear. My mother-in-law, gripping his arm tightly, bombarded him with questions. "What happened? Why would you do that?" I continued, "I know everything, Larry. Ultimately, you were more obsessed with the idea of being successful than actually being a businessman. You had no real business sense, yet you impulsively went ahead and ended up squandering all the inheritance your father left, didn't you?" "Yes, that's right." I addressed my mother-in-law directly, whose face was now etched with suspicion and growing anger. "Larry has used up not only his inheritance, but our household finances are in ruins because of his actions." I let the weight of the situation sink in for a moment before adding, "I have been covering all the expenses for the house. Even the allowance you thought Larry was giving you came from my wallet. In addition to that, I've been paying for all of Larry's misguided ventures." My mother-in-law slumped back into the sofa, her expression one of shock and despair. The realization of the situation seemed to drain the fight from her as she absorbed the gravity of the financial disaster wrought by her son. As I observed their reactions, I continued, "While he's been masquerading as a businessman, we've been sinking financially." Larry tried to offer reassurance. "Don't worry, Mom, with Jessica's income, we manage." I quickly interjected, "Don't trivialize this. I heard you're starting yet another business. We're already scraping the bottom. No more squandering money on your fantasies." The cafe grew quiet, the tension palpable. I finished the last of my tea in one gulp and made my intentions clear. "I can no longer shoulder the responsibility for both of you who have effectively become penniless. You'll need to handle next week's rent payment. As for the divorce, we'll proceed with it through a lawyer." Larry pleaded with tears in his eyes. "I don't want a divorce. Please don't do this." However, my decision was firm. My mother-in-law, her face ashen, implored me for help. "Helen, you once said you didn't accept me as family. Well, as compensation for the burn, I'd like you to start by making this payment. I hope you still have some savings left, I stated resolutely, leaving them to absorb the shock. Exiting the luxury hotel, I glanced back at the towering structure, hoping they felt the dramatic shift from their high life to their new reality, a symbolic fall from grace. Ultimately, we proceeded with the divorce. Larry resisted initially, but when I threatened to involve the police in the assault, he capitulated. I could never forgive my mother-in-law, but ensuring her absence from my life would help me forget her. As part of the settlement, I demanded a significant sum for emotional distress. Later on, they moved into a cramped apartment. The dynamics between my wasteful ex-husband and his disillusioned mother became increasingly strained. Striving for independence, my once haughty mother-in-law resorted to part-time cleaning jobs, a thought that brought a wry smile to my face. Larry, meanwhile, found himself mired in debt, juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet at night. The irony of their changed circumstances was not lost on me. It appears that a regular job is more fitting for Larry's real capabilities. The dynamic personality that initially drew me to him turned out to be mere impulsiveness and superficiality when viewed in a different light. The luxurious lifestyle enabled by my father-in-law's inheritance only magnified these traits. Now, I've shifted back to actively working from my parents' home. I later met with Senior Samuel to update him on the situation and express my thanks. He commended my writing abilities, and I've started receiving projects from him. For now, my focus is on rebuilding my life and pursuing my well-being while staying with my parents.